particular way when such a thing happens? And how should I deal with the breakup? And how should I deal with grief? I think that those are important conversations, and I like having them. It was something that I needed toward the end of my 20s. You said I had a different life. I was a club promoter for a long time.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it when I was on the come up, and I'm trying to pay it forward.
Australia's just banned under 16s from all social media. What do you think of that?
I think it's a good idea. I am very concerned, like you are, about what social media does to young minds. The research from Jonathan Haidt, I have seen replication crisis come in. There's a lot of skepticism and criticism around that. But you can't deny, no matter what the mechanism is, you cannot deny the fact that teen mental health appears to be plummeting. And it's happened pretty precipitously, and it seems to be correlated with what's going on in social media.
And anxiety in particular. Why is that? Why is this young generation of people, say 12 to 24, why are they so anxious?
I think there's a lot of reasons for this. Certainly one would be less time outside, less exercise, worse physical health. We had a discussion last time about mental health or physical health.
Yeah.
And the two work sympatically.
Yeah, they do.
Right? That if you have poor physical health because you're spending more time on screens, because there's more to do inside, you're going to spend less time out and moving.
I sleep worse, and I wonder how much of it is sleep related. Like if I've not been doing much physical exercise, like I was in New York for the election, it was constant work, reading all the time, not really exercising, not even getting into the park. And I found that my sleep was affected more than it normally would be.
There's some evidence to suggest that people spend around about twice as long on screens as they do asleep per day. And the number one form of malnutrition now is not starvation, but obesity worldwide. There's twice as many people that are obese than starving. Now, I'm not saying that we need to make more people starve in order to rebalance this, but this just shows we've gone from a world of scarcity to one of abundance, and the problems are very different. You now need to be discerning as opposed to scouring.
Young men have had a rough old decade, really. You can chart it to sort of when the Me Too Time's Up campaign hit, a crisis of perhaps confidence about what it means to be a man, how should you behave. Some of it was obvious, some of it not so obvious, a lot of blurred lines, a lot of moving pendulums and so on. Really interestingly, in the American election we've just had, a lot of young men, white, black, Latinos in particular, gravitated to Donald Trump, who'd surrounded himself with what they're calling the broligarchy. So you got Trump, and they're all like alpha male guys. Trump, Elon Musk, RFK Jr., you've got Vivek Ramaswamy. And then you've got the Jordan Petersons and the Joe Rogans out there in the YouTube world who are also supporting this. What do you think of the broligarchy? Is it a long overdue, like, I don't know, what would you call it, a support group that's come for young men who just don't know quite what it means to be a man?
Interestingly, I don't think that the broligarchy or bro politics, as it's being coined, I don't think it's actually primarily about men. And I think that's what's really interesting. It's primarily about doing things that men typically have been good at, which is just getting shit done. They get things done. And it's an optimization now on effectiveness and efficiency over optics, right? It's on getting something created, regardless of how you appear. Elon had this really interesting discussion a while ago where he said, I care more about doing good than the appearance of looking good. And I think that world of the performative empathy, toxic compassion, victimhood mindset, I think that...
Virtue signaling.
Yes. I think that was... it was like a gold bar that was beaten down into a leaf so thin that if you poked it, a hole immediately went through it. It looked glitzy from the outside. It looked like it was legitimate. But really, when you poked it a little bit, we've seen this time and time again, whether it's individual authors or organizations or charities or movements or whatever, they're not as virtuous as they seem from the outside. And now you have people who have easily stress testable. Does your rocket go to space and come back? Or does it explode? Does the Pentagon's budget get cut? Or does it not? Do we get better efficiency inside of government or do we not? And this world of optimizing for facts and outcomes as opposed to optics, I think is one that's long overdue. And the masculinity thing, if that ends up bringing along for the ride a role model that says this is what a man can be, being able to achieve these things, there's no reason that it can't be. Tulsi Gabbard is right in the mix along with all of these people. Right. She seems to embody as many masculine virtues as...
Well, Trump actually has a lot of women in his nominated cabinet, a lot of women. I mean, it's one of the most diverse cabinets actually in terms of gender and race there's ever been.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think that creating a positive role model for men to look up to, for anybody to look up to that just wants some mastery and some upward aiming, meritocracy, you've said, has been under attack for a long time. I get the sense that you're right. And yeah, applauding, like, making achievement great again is not a bad...
No, I completely agree. It's reality. But this also plays into what Elon calls the woke mind virus. That a lot of what he's talking about is not based on reality. It's based on a weird kind of... I would say it comes down actually to, my truth. As soon as I heard that phrase, I was like, what do you mean, my truth? And we heard it from Meghan Markle, and then all sorts of people started saying it. There is no such thing as my truth, is there? I mean, there's the truth, which is a fact-based thing, and then there's everything else. But you can't have your own version of truth, can you?
There's certainly a place for...
Do you ever use that phrase?
No, I've never used that, I don't think. But there is a place to do a devil's advocate thing. There are certain types of individual or personal experience that are very difficult to put in objective data, right? There are certain things that you've been through, ineffable parts of your personality, emotions, experiences, stories, and stuff that you've pieced together. Where if you say, well, show me where that appears on a balance sheet, you go, that's kind of hard to do. So there is a sense that we need to flesh out the way that people see the world in more than just what can be accounted for. But I think both of us would say the pendulum has swung far too far in one direction, which is that we're looking for taking everybody at their word as opposed to, what does this actually mean?
Well, I remember also going back to the Me Too campaign, there was a weird thing to start with where all women must be believed.
Believe all women, yeah.
And I found that immediately, as a journalist, I just found that very incongruous. I was like, well, hang on, I've covered many court cases over the years where people have turned out to be lying, male and female, right? Why should you automatically believe people? Automatically listen to them, take what they say seriously if they're making allegations, which is serious. But you don't automatically believe anybody, not in my world. You listen. I mean, you can tell me stuff now. I'm not going to automatically believe you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what the world is trying to do, whether it's with the climate change debate, really overblowing the level of intensity that the rhetoric needs to be having. You're gluing yourself to the floor, or you're throwing soup over a painting, or whether it's with Me Too, believe all women, kill all men. These sorts of campaigns. What they're trying to do is overshoot the target so much to actually come into land where they want. But that doesn't garner people to care more. What it does is it makes them feel like you're overblowing the entire conversation, and it gets them to switch off.
Yeah.
I think, Me Too probably was a reckoning that was needed to call powerful men to account for what they were doing.
I agree.
The problem was it sought to sanitize the toxic elements of male behavior, and instead it ended up sterilizing all of them.
Yes.
It made men terrified of women, and it made women incredibly nervous of being approached by men. So these gym videos, some girls doing horrible hip thrusts in a gym, and some guy glances over 3 times in 90 seconds. She tries to put it on the internet to flame him as, this is a creep in the gym. So 2 things happen with that. First off, it makes men very nervous about approaching women in the gym. But the second thing is it gives other women a barometer for what is and isn't acceptable behavior by men. Now, thankfully, really interesting reversal of what could have happened. I think most people pushed back against those videos and said, I don't think that person's misbehaved. I think that you're being too sensitive, and that's actually not something you should pull them up on. But had it have gone in the other direction, you now have a generation of girls, millions and millions of girls who have seen that video, who think, if a man looks at me more than 3 times in 90 seconds when I'm in the gym, I should feel uncomfortable. This is creating the very fragility that we don't want in women. We want robust, strong, competent men as partners, and we want the same from women too. But the more that you hypersensitize everybody to this situation, I don't think it's a good environment.
Is Donald Trump a good role model for men?
That's an interesting one.
Given how many have gravitated to him?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's kind of part of a past gone era in a way. He's very old school.